We're live!
Buongiorno!
Hello!
Hey! All right. It's been a hectic weekend of states and provincials, depending on which side of the border in North America you live on. It's an exciting weekend, and I'm here joined by a whole bunch of excited players, including myself and Tom.
Hello, everyone. If you weren't watching the pre-show, then hello for the first time, and if you were, then hello for the first time in a few minutes.
Mike.
What up?
And Mr. J. And, of course, the Metal Lab is brought to you in part by HCRealms.com, the one-stop source for all sorts of Heroclix community and information. If you're looking for building a team, use the unit section while you're checking it out in your browser. Keep track of your collection there. Arrange trades. Check out the forums for all the discussion, including the hot discussion right now is the results of the ROC States and Provincials. If you're looking for an ROC in your area, check out the ROC tab, where you'll get all sorts of information on upcoming ROC tournaments and other such events involved with the ROC. The next big one we have coming up here in Canada being the Canada Cup, which we'll be talking about a little later on today in the show. And while you happen to be on HCRealms.com, check out the shop section. They have some cool paraphernalia involving stuff with for HC Realms and the ROC. And while you're checking out with some of that cool stuff, put in the coupon code MARRIED for 10% off of your purchase. We're also brought to you in part by MajesticCCG.com, a Heroclix shop based out of California. They are a longtime supporter and sponsor, owned by Patrick Iboko, former world champion and world team champion and ROC world champion. All three honors earned in the same year, I might add. And if you're looking for more information and more to consume from some of the great players in the game and me, check out the Apex Insiders part of the website. $3 a month gets you access to the premium portion of the website, but they also do have regular free updates, including ROC results and other articles written by some of the greats in the game. So once again, that's MajesticCCG.com. And Mike is currently under arrest as the police fly by his window.
Around here.
It's getting a little muggy here in Canada.
There's an AWA song for this.
Yeah, is it going to rain, for heaven's sakes? We need it.
Oh, dude, I got dumped on here in Mississauga, man. It was insane.
Did it rain?
Yeah, exactly. You guys must be talking about my dice rolls from Saturday.
Yes, that's what we mean.
Yeah, right. Well, I also do have 2 3-year-old kids, and we're still in potty training levels on that one. So briefly, in the news, there's not much to talk about. There was a preview of Taskmaster, but Civil War is out, and therefore it's, previews are kind of less exciting now, as everybody has seen just about everything out there. But it is worth mentioning that one thing did come up from Civil War, and that is the neutral figure rarities. What ended up happening is the neutral figures went out, but they all have white tabs and are such marked as commons. So they put a little update on the site here. The only ones that are actually common are Namorita, Coldheart, and Goldbug. And then in the uncommon slot, you get Microbe, Speed Freak, Plunderer. In the rare slot, Cobalt Man and Tigra, and Stature takes up the super rare slot of these guys. So, of course, they all have rarities, and they're kind of explaining what happened, and there was an issue with the automated product setup. So, things happen. So when you are drafting your prizes in the snake draft, you might want to keep a copy of this handy, or just this list handy, so that you know the rarities on these figures when you're trying to pick them out. So just wanted to give that quick update before we get into the discussion, which is the most and important of the bulk of this episode. And let's talk about our provincial championship. So if you have been keeping track of the HC Realms tab, a lot of people were talking about their states and provincials. We had a fairly large turnout of 28 people at ours, which was really exciting.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was great. A lot of people have been complaining that their turnouts were low, and that's interesting because ours was great.
Ours was really good, I thought.
Yeah.
Considering last year, it was a little bit more. And that's just what you want, growth.
Yep, growth is important. I think we could have had more, but I know a few people had vacations that were timed a little bit weird. And apparently the information didn't get out to Hamilton, and a lot of the players in Hamilton came last year as well. So I think we missed out on a couple of those bodies, but we did have some players come from Southern Ontario, about 4 hours out, came for a trip. One player came from the United States to come play, which was amazing. And a couple of guys came from quite a distance away. So it was really exciting to see people travel to the Comic Warehouse for the Provincials, and it was a really exciting time for all of us. So without further ado, let's talk about how we did, starting with somebody who isn't me. Let's go with Tom, because my day. We'll start positive, and we'll go to my negative note at the end.
Well, and for what it's worth, mine isn't the most positive, but I will start things off. I had a good time, very much so. I unfortunately, I knew this going in that I was likely not going to be able to stay for the whole thing. I had a work commitment in the evening that I was unable to get out of, and so while I drove a bunch of people up there, they had to take an Uber home. I appreciate your understanding of that.
Thank you for the ride.
And so I went into it not knowing, depending upon how many people were there, it may, and you know how efficiently things were run. I thought maybe I could get to the top or compete in the top, whatever it was going to be. If there were only 3 rounds of Swiss, if we went right in without a break, etc. I wasn't absolutely sure what was going to happen, but I figured there was a pretty good chance I wasn't going to be able to stick around, and indeed I didn't. So I had a good time. I got to play in the Swiss rounds, but dropped out. I did make the top 8. I was playing a team with the Superman from SR Superman from Superman Wonder Woman, as well as Mr. Mixed-Pitlick, and a 25-point Nightwing, along with a round table. And the concept with this team was to have some flexibility on Superman, because I can use weight that's not Superman to switch out for Superman, or potentially use the round tables I'm better suited for the Expose effect to switch out for a different character. So it was a 10-pole team. I like to call it a flex-pole team, because it was 10-pole, but flexible as to which tempo was going to be, within reason. And I had a lot of fun. In every round, I played a different combination of figures, so I was doing what I had in mind. I was able to get through the first round. I was up against a lovely gentleman. I never remember names, so I apologize if I forget everybody's name that I played against. But he was playing an almost X-Men themed team, but it wasn't, because Magneto was not a member of the X-Men. So it was just a combination of good elements. He had a Magneto to help enable throwing forward your 100-point X-23. He had the 70-point Professor X with his awesome lockdown, doesn't need line of fire outwit, that can go on from turn to turn if your dice are hot, and an Emma Frost to perplex up the team. So he had a nice little unit there, but ultimately that was not. He went out quite aggressively, going after Nighthawk, which is good to get rid of the outsiders, but it left X-23 available to get smacked around. Because I went with Superman, the base Superman, I was able to sidestep up, so I wasn't taking tokens, and that way I could. He was free to bring out an ID character to do some attacking for him, and then once he started taking tokens, then he started collecting outnumbered tokens until X-23 died, of course. But it was Nightwing, so I've been trying to say. Jay just pointed out that I keep saying Nighthawk, and I will never say it right. Never.
He screws up those two all the time. It's okay.
Constantly. So I got
for the same reasons.
the second matchup of the day was an incredibly intense match against Patrick Chow, one of the locals here, and he's a great player, and he had put together a really powerful team using Age of Apocalypse, Magneto. And it was an X-Men themed team even without needing to draft somebody else in, but he'd also used Weapon X and Sunfire, and he had, I think, Pandora's Box on there. And even though I came out with a KC Green Lantern, but the sheer number of attacks Magneto gets meant that eventually that defense was going to crack, and he almost took out Green Lantern completely. I got down to like my second last click and was kind of backpedaling, but I was able to get back at Magneto, and making Nighthawk a Colossal to finish him off was instrumental, because then we could just sort of play the long game. I was playing keep away, trying to lock him down with whoever was left on my team, and it did ultimately work out, but it was a very, very intense game. I lost the third game against Jimmy, another one of the locals here. A very close game. That one really could have gone either way, but it went to him because he put together a great team. And ultimately, it went to time. We were the two at the sort of the first table, having both gone undefeated with the most points up until that point. And I think everyone else in the tournament had finished. We were the only ones who went to time. And when we went to time, then he was a little bit ahead on points. So, a little more time may have gone in my favor, but it might not have. Either way, Jimmy's a great player, so nothing doing on that one. And then in the last round, then I was up against a Mary Marvel team that had Clarion as well as a call-in from Nova and something else that I'm going to forget, Scarlet Witch. It was just a pure slobber knocker, but it was a slobber knocker that ultimately went in my favor thanks to some good dice, and he really came out aggressively. But because of Mixie's die, I was able to turn Mary Marvel's would-be hit into a miss, and that left Mary Marvel very available to get pounced upon. I took her out fairly quickly, and then it was a lot of chasing for the rest of the game. Mixie nearly died, Nighthawk did die, and Superman endured. So it was a great time. After 4 rounds, unfortunately, I had to go to work. I did make the top 8, but I was unable to stick around for it, and that was fine. It was just good to get out there and then play some clicks and have a great fun time. And I'll tell you, knowing you can't stay for the end takes the pressure off. So even though I did well, I was having a good time either way. And I often, Mike and I were alluding to this on the pre-show game, and then after we went off the air for a few minutes, we were both reflecting on the fact that every now and again you really need to just enjoy the process of playing Heroclix. And that can be in a casual setting, but it can also be in a competitive setting. As long as your mindset is right, and you come in, to taking a breath and just focusing on enjoying yourself, a competitive Heroclix setting can still be a very rewarding and enjoyable one. The fact that I couldn't stick around meant the pressure was off, so I could just focus on the joy of trying to play the game tactically. And as a result, I really had a great time. So it's also very exciting just to think that it might be the biggest day of Heroclix in all of Heroclix, with everybody all over North America playing. And that's really quite exciting. So I think congratulations to everybody who got out this weekend to participate in the tournaments locally and far and abroad. If you're listening to this and you played this weekend, then you're one of the winners, because we all make the game better by participating in it. And as far as I'm concerned, it's like International Clicks Day is the States and Provincials Championship. When else do you get this many different people going to this many different tournaments, having this much fun playing competitive Heroclix? So I had a great time, and I hope everyone else did too.
All right. Mike?
I absolutely did. I had a really good time. I went in with a little bit of pressure because I was last year's champion, and felt that a bit. I ended up playing a double Loki team, so it was Loki with Eclipso, Loki with Brainiac, Pandora's Box with the Lust and Wrath relics. Really simple. I love the simplicity of this team overall, because my teams were oftentimes 30 seconds or less. Which is apparently contrary to my previous record, as some people have said that I take a little bit long, depending on what team I'm playing. But in the high-level meta, there, you do have a lot to consider in many cases, especially with my last year's winning team. You have to think about what you're actually going to be shutting down and anticipating a whole bunch of different pieces, especially since there were batteries. But the really refreshing part about this particular competition is it was the first big competition without any batteries. It was the first mid-retirement tournament, as Guardians of the Galaxy is still legal. And in fact, we did end up seeing zombies. I'll get to that in a second. In my first round, I faced off against a double Nick Fury team.
Yep.
And my team was made to destroy that thing. That team ended up winning the whole thing, but he didn't have one successful attack on me because just can't target me. Neither one of my characters can be targeted. The two entities chosen, they essentially have all very very similar clicks, same values, and they solve a lot of the issues that Loki does have. Speaking of which, I'm really talking about having a reducer of some kind. So you choose impervious. A lot of the time I just go, okay, they both get impervious, they both get +1 damage. Because their 3 damage isn't quite enough, so having 4 damage and having a third rollout, because they have traded shape change and top dial. First 2 clicks on the dial, they have super senses as well. So you got 3 rollouts, along with not being able to be targeted by characters unless they have the mystical or deity keywords or are greater than 150 points. That being said, Aubrey's team was pretty cool. It's soldier theme, I believe.
It was.
He had Pandora's Box, actually in a very very similar configuration to my own. Only two relics on it. I believe he had the Sloth relic though, because it gives you +1 defense period. And when you don't take actions with that character that turn, they do Heroclix, which came in handy many times as I watched several of his games after I was knocked out. The other piece was Jason of Sparta. I love Jason of Sparta. Being able to carry his whole team across, because it was Jason of Sparta along with Nick Fury, Phalanx Ultron, Soldier as well, and what was the last piece? Oh, General Lane. And so being able to carry the whole team across and then going once per game, oh, by the way, you can't do any damage to my guys for this turn. Fantastic combination. And then having the ID character version, or the level 7 there to be able to bring out a Nick Fury for a turn as well is tremendous. So overall, none of that stuff works against my team. I managed to knock him out actually fairly quickly, considering my team does move a little bit on the slow side, regardless of how many turns I'm taking. And in the second round, though, I faced the team that I really didn't want to face, because one of the big weaknesses of my team is Zombie Super Scroll and the Zombie team base, and that's what I faced. I also made a really critical error in the second or third turn. I managed to get map roll. I chose the Manhattan Bridge from the recent UXM set, because I wanted to position, there's kind of like two pieces of elevated, and I wanted to position in such a way that it really limited his ability to running shot single target pulse wave. So you go a little bit inward, so at least then there's a good possibility that he'll either have to dual target, they'll each take one, they have a very similar second click, either that or one of them will be just out and be able to prob it. So it gives me another chance to get around that potential devastating pulse wave. Now, he brought out he came across the board, and then because he had Mole Man on there, he could bring out two characters, and that was Zombie Super Scroll and Red Skull. Zombie Super Scroll, simply running shot, pulse waves. He missed his first attack. That was, oh my god, so good. Oh, just the blood pressure just goes away momentarily, because as Jason likes to point out, I go beat red when I play really intensely, because I'm just like, oh god, I gotta win this.
His hair matches his face. He becomes one.
It's true. It's true. I look like a really heavy drinker, but I'm not. So anyway, that was kind of his first turn. He comes in with Super Scroll. I've got combat reflexes because of the relic, so he can't attack. He can't hit me with Super Scroll, or not Super Scroll, with Red Skull. I mind control Super Scroll my next turn and go ahead and single target pulse wave on Red Skull. And then what did I do? Oh, I mind controlled the Red Skull to go after someone else. It's like, what are you doing? He's almost dead. Kill him. Take those points. They're yours. And you thought you were going to have such a hard time. Well, I did make it so that I had a really hard time. Anyway, partway through the game, he had Super Scroll had killed one of my Lokis and brought him back. So I was being chased around the board by a whole bunch of guys, and I ended up being able to mind control my own Loki. Or no, sorry, not mind control. I managed to be able to blast my own Loki and get 115 points out of that. That's the points that I took in that game. So at least in my second round, I had full clear first round. Second round, that's what happened. Excuse me. Third round, I went up against Spencer, and Spencer was playing. He's another very good player. He won a bunch of win-amounts last year. And was top 8, I believe, at Provincials last year. He was playing a no tactics team. It was the Red Sun Wonder Woman with. Oh. What's that?
Ooh, just so good.
Oh yeah, she's amazing. Red Sun Wonder Woman with Rainbow Raider and Nighthawk. So I can't modify upwards. And if I'm going after the support characters, then I'm -2 to my attack and my stats in that particular attack. So it took a little while, but I whittled down Rainbow Raider first. Then I went for Nighthawk, and then I eventually killed Wonder Woman because they just could not target me and could not get past my rollouts. And it's just very, very awesome. I love that team. Anyway, that was how that went. Then I went into my third round against Jay.
That was fourth round.
Oh, sorry, fourth round. I went into a match against Jay with his Quinjet, Jay will discuss his team in depth, I'm sure, so I will spare you. It looks like a really good matchup for me on paper, and it generally would be. I made a couple mistakes that did not help. The biggest one is when he managed to get a hit off on one of my Lokis and sent him downward, spiraling downward, and but I had the opportunity to get away and to run around because none of his team could actually target my guys, and so it would be very hard for him to be able to corner that character, while the other one actually went to town on them. Plus, I spent the first half of the game just trying to avoid making that first attack, like a direct attack, because of the retaliation of Adam. Because the Adam's retaliation is really great against my guys because it ignores combat reflexes, super senses, shape change, and it's penetrating
damage.
Yeah. So it's like either I'm on click 3 with both of them, or I'm just trying to mind control his own little puny peons to be able to do damage against him, or at least against each other. And there's another error. I took out Jewel very close to the beginning of the game, and I didn't run. I could have run because I was ahead, and squeaked out a win that way, possibly. Very difficult for his team to catch up to mine. But anyway, he managed to kill the one Loki, and then the other Loki just went on the offensive and just tried to scrape up some more points and take out. Like, if I had whittled down Jarvis even, that would have been a really good solution as well, because I'd already caused the retaliation to happen. It happened, and I think he missed, or was that the actual?
I would have been KO'd anyways because of the mystics,
Right.
but I ended up crit missing.
Exactly. Yeah. So there were just a few things that were going on. Plus, I hadn't read the trait on the Quinjet. You can't mind control the Quinjet because of the Wakandan technology, and so I'd forgotten about that. Anyway, good game overall. Very stressful for both of us, I think, because we had to call a judge over a few times. Also, watching Jay play his team, that was awesome because there's so much inventory there, so much inventory management. I'm like, okay, I do these two things, it's your turn. And he's like, I have to get through this. Heavy breathing. There was one really cool turn where this is the turn that allowed him to take one of my guys down to his 5th click, or 4th click, I can't remember, 4th or 5th. And that was, in the previous turn, he had brought out, what was it, Agent
Peggy.
Carter, Peggy Carter as a permanent character, and then he managed to have, well, anyway, it all culminated with Bucky's out, Agent Carter, Peggy Carter is out, and Batman's out. And so Precision Strike from Bucky being near him, along with you can't use blah blah blah, and one other particular piece of it meant that I had pretty much no rollouts. I had one prob, and he managed to hit with his 13 attack on my 20 defense. So there was nothing that I could do about it in that particular case. Anyway, that was really cool. Knocked me out of the tournament in that foul swoop, and got Jay into the top 8. All good stuff. Yeah, really, really fun. I had a great time. I ended up playing with Emily afterwards, one of our friends, one of our unofficial teammates. She didn't have a great day in terms of her performance. She had a great time. She always has a good time. And so I faced her team with my team and took that game and then really got into the nitty-gritty of what's working and isn't working with her team and works with my team and everything else, and then managed to watch the rest of the tournament happen after time left. It's really cool. Great day.
All right, Jay.
You told my whole story. I hate you.
That's just round
Hey,
4.
explain your team. I didn't explain it. I said I spared them that.
Oh, okay. This is
God.
This is a team and a half.
Oh, jeez. Why does he come on the show?
Oh my god. Okay, Quinjet Resource, Jarvis, Fast Forces Captain America at 50 from the original Avengers, Jewel at 25, Parademon, which adds up to counting for 9 characters for my 9 ID cards. 2 level 7s, Bucky, Batman, Superman, Black Canary, Captain Cold, Atom, Nightwing. And unfortunately could only have one option per character because the sideline rules 9 maximums, so I had to pick the very best options. which was pretty much the best options for all those characters. And then for the Nightwing, it was 100-point Nightwing for the Pog, which was awesome. Round 1 was against Spencer, which was difficult, but he forgot or didn't do the actions because he was doing other things with Rainbow Raider, but he never did the power action, so my stats were okay. So I took out Nighthawk first, then I went for Wonder Woman, then she got her stop click, then she regened up. I couldn't hit her for some reason, then I just killed Rainbow Raider, then I finished her off. That was a scary team to have to just sit down and see.
You bet.
Round 2 is against Drake, who is playing Quicksilver with Eclipso, and then Sunfire, Chase with Brainiac, Pixie, and then Pandora's Box with, I believe, Sloth and Wrath. Sloth for sure. Oh yeah, Wrath for the willpower on Quicksilver. I remember that. He basically was there for fun mostly, as he said, but then he basically just moved all his guys up, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a turn 1 call, and this is a new thing. So I brought in Nick Fury. Perplexed up his damage with Jarvis, gave Jarvis the shield power action from the inspiration from the level 7 ID, and then one-shotted his Sunfire. So that was pretty brutal from literally first action, basically.
He succeeded at the fun part of the day, then.
It was different, because my usual turn plan was turn 1, pilot, move action on the Quinjet, to click the resource tile after clearing turn 2, to be able to get the atom from the free part of from the resource. So that was like the one time I went against that usual game plan. And then there was an issue, well, there was a mutual issue where he made a placement on the map afterwards, assuming that there was blocking in a square or like a wall, which I agreed initially when I saw it. I agreed and whatever, and then later we both realized that that was not the case. So I didn't get to make an opportunity for an attack that I otherwise could have, but didn't want to like go back and do it because that would have felt a bit not ideal to do.
Yeah.
And especially considering that I initially thought the same thing, so it's hard to blame him because it's obviously not mispositioning when it's just a visual issue, and I didn't feel like it was really fair to punish him for an eyeball mistake when he's definitely clearly a good player, just considering his placements and that he was second in last year's Provincials, among other things.
Never forget the golden rule. Don't be a dink.
Pretty much.
Just don't be a dick.
His Quicksilver actually was able to kill my Quinjet because he was flurrying for 5 damage between +1 damage from his identity plus Perplex. He was actually able to kill that thing. And then I ended up losing to him, but I took a bunch of points, like 180 something. So I was doing about as well as I could at that point with a loss. Round 3 was against a guy, I can't remember his name, who was playing Beast, Super Rare with Proteus at 100 points, the Rare Magneto with the Energy Shield, Thingamabobber, and... Ow! There's my mom! Go, okay, no.
Hi, Jay's mom.
Hi, Jay's mom.
And the dude also had Scarlet Witch, and he kind of just didn't know what the Quinjet did, and then it just was this whole thing of complete overload when you just see a team you have literally no idea what it does, and then it pops out like billions of characters. And then round 4 was probably the hardest game of the whole event against Mike. Because basically I ended up doing that because I couldn't draw the line of fire to him. He was going to have to get his first strike, so I basically had to position myself to give him that first attack, but also be in the most opportune position, then retaliate, and then that's basically what ended up happening. So basically the play of the game was having to set up Peggy Carter as a permanent call-in at 1 turn, then the next turn call in Bucky as a regular ID call-in to get the inspiration, to then turn the resource, to then call in Batman with the resource, and if I had rolled a 1 I wouldn't be able to get it, I would have been really sad. To then have Peggy shut off Impervious, Bucky shuts up Shape Change with the inspiration, and then Batman poisoned his Lokis with the Impervious gotten rid of, and they'd made an attack with like 13 and 5 or something, and then he just killed one of the Lokis. So it was like a whole 5-turn plan or whatever.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and then that all happened, and my Adam crit missed and punched himself in the face, and that was fun. And then the game ended up going to the point where I killed one of his Lokis, Mike had taken some points. It was like, the score was like 140 to 70, and at that point I realized that I basically, for fun, I actually brought in my Nick Fury when he only had one Nightwing left, because I would be able to deal penetrating damage at that point, but he would still have his 2 rollouts. But I managed to get it to the point where if I would have hit, it would have just killed, but he rolled a shape change. So.
And then I mind controlled your guy, and your Nick Fury, and made him do lots of damage to you.
Yeah, so then he mind controlled my Nick to do stuff to me, so then I was like, okay, I have no more options. None of my other characters can do anything to him. I gotta get out of here. So I end up bringing in. I previously brought in Nightwing to literally try to in-cap his Lokis to give him 2 tokens, able to draw a line of fire to them.
Nothing wrong with that.
So I had to support Pog, and I basically ended up just going away with the Jet and healing it almost back to top dial while he tried to catch up. Because that Jet is fast. So at the end, I ended up beating him, and it was a good game, and it was really intense.
That was just bad, man. That was
there was a lot of heavy breathing for multiple reasons.
Mainly because you're a mouth breather, but that's okay.
Well, that and Mike's sauce sandwich.
So I ended up, at that point, I actually ended up, after losing to Drake, I ended up being in a higher placement at the cut. I think I was like 3rd at that point. And then after the cut, well, the problem was that we didn't get the break that we were promised. I was like,
nobody promised the break.
No one promised.
I wanted a break.
It's just the usual. It's just
we
the usual.
usually have a break.
It's
It's
just
based on the
heavily
time the
implied.
store is open.
Don't be a whiny
We didn't
bitch.
have that option, so
Heavily implied breaks. I was like, it would have been nice to take
Heavily
5.
implied break.
Implied and assumed are 2 different things. One is going to happen, or we said something that gives you that excuse, and assumed is you've seen it a few times, but nothing has been said necessarily.
Okay.
So there was no break.
So there was no break, and then poor Tom had to leave, and then I got a little more sad.
Oh.
So I ended up facing Aubrey, and he has a brutal team.
Were you in 3rd place, right?
3rd at
You
that
missed.
point.
You would have
you
been against
took
me
overall.
then, I think. I believe I was in 6th.
Spoiler alert. No,
Yeah.
I was 3rd at the point of the cut.
Yeah, that's what I say. I think I was in 6th before I dropped, so it would have been.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Tom was in 6 before he dropped.
You would have probably picked Green Lantern against me, I would think.
It's hard to say. That is tempting, but so is Red Sun Superman.
That's true. I think it would have been an interesting match.
I think so too.
Yeah. So then I was facing Aubrey, who had the brutal team and 1 map roll on me. So he picked that one ROC map that is like Nick Fury's Wet Dream, which with literally no blocking, just elevated and whatnot. So coming into the match, I think he only plays DC or only plays Marvel because he didn't seem to do what any of my DC stuff did, like including the Atom. And then when I brought in the Atom, it kind of just blew his mind.
Aubrey knows very well what his team does a lot of the time.
Yeah. I also didn't know what the Quinjet did going in, so I had a little bit of an advantage there. So he picked that map, we set up or whatever. He moved out, whatever. And then he did his tactic of bringing in 2 Nick Furies in one turn, doing all the attacks. And my Quinjet was hurting, but it was still there. So I managed to call in the Atom and then call in another character as a regular ID and do some damage, whatever stuff. And then I made my only ID card character error of the day, which was a charge flurry with Nightwing. 1 too many squares to both attack his remaining Jason of Sparta and then punch out the ultra heavy object under Nick Fury. And then good old active Judge Jason walked by and then pointed that out, and then we had to. No, I'm not blaming you. I'm saying it was good that you did that. So we had to take it all back because I made the mistake. Yeah, and at that point, I think it was fairly even, and I could have taken the game because he only had Nick Fury left and a hurt Jason of Sparta. So I was hoping that I could have taken it back, but that mistake happened, and then all sorts of stuff happened, and he ended up winning. But he ended up winning the tournament, so it's okay. And as long as I beat Mike. That's the most important part.
That's what you needed to do. You accomplished it.
Yeah. So then, as has been spoiled, I ended up placing 5th, which is the best among all of us.
Yeah, it is actually. You did do the best.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not including Tom, because Tom
no, including Tom. Tom came in dead last. I had to drop. And,
well, you definitely.
You would have qualified, though, just for the...
Yeah, that's my point. You qualified. You did good outside of having to drop. But then I walked away with the Brainiac Scholarship that I still hadn't had because it was too expensive.
Oh,
Very
and
it was nice.
Isn't it nice? Oh, go
if
ahead.
I didn't mention it before, I came in 11th overall, so it wasn't horrible.
Isn't it nice to get things that you actually need? It's such a rarity that when you win a tournament, you get things that you don't already have, except at the really big tournaments. So it's great.
But it was also weird because like it was a purchasable, but I just didn't purchase it because it was stupidly expensive and bored. But I did want it because Brainiac and Legion of Doom, and then I got it.
For sure.
So thank you. Thank you,
Congratulations.
Jason, because I think you donated it.
Yeah. A lot of the prizing for this event and some of what we're giving to the Canada Cup came from my WKO winnings in Ottawa and my 3rd place winnings at Nationals.
Well, Amber also did win the scholarship at that side event.
And I was going to say, and the side event that Amber played in, that she got a bunch of prizes. So, like, they all went into boxes, and there's another box that is currently started for the Canada Cup, which is going to include some significantly more ID cards than we had available for this event to add to the prizing, as it were.
So we appreciate Jason is the point of the story, apparently.
Well, it's a good thing because the dice and my team didn't appreciate me for this event.
No.
I tell you. Oh my God! All right,
You were upset.
Well, yeah, of course. Look, I don't mind that my team wasn't that good, but there's a lot more points I should have been scoring, and there's at least one game I should have been winning just based on pure odds, odds I put in my favor, and just it didn't happen. And you know, when you walk away from things like that after you set your bar so high from results of another tournament. That's kind of the place to get into.
Well, yeah.
So, going into this, what I wanted to do for this event was I wanted to try something new. I'm taking Worlds a little bit more seriously than I'm taking this event. So this was a testing ground for something I wanted to try. And what I wanted to try was I wanted to recapture lightning in the bottle, as it were, with my team from Nationals. A lot of similar functionality, but at the same time different and built in this new meta. So my team this time around, it was the Superman again, possessed by Proteus. This time backed up by a Trinity War Batman at 85 points, an Atomica, and what was the other figure I had on my team? A Green Lantern at his 30-point dial to make a 4-character Justice League team. I also had a round table on this team to kind of diversify inspirations and see what I could pull out of the team. Now, the idea was different from my team that I played in Nationals. I had significantly more prob, a ton of perplex between Batman and Green Lantern. Even more probability control when you consider I had team probs, I had Batman with prob, and I had the CSA prob from Atomica. So generally the idea is you shouldn't be missing with this team, especially when you're attacking with things like 14 attack when you get +1 from Proteus, right? Well, things happened a little differently than expected. Now, my first game was against Demetrius, or Jimmy, as we call him locally. His team just completely outclassed mine. A Vanisher is what I like to call an enabler, or the key to making things in your face happen. And Vanisher, when teamed up with a Clarion and a Ultron Phalanx and a Doc Ock, that's a lot of attacks all of a sudden in your face. So, unfortunately, he came in flying, and my 18 defense from Superman that was given to Batman from Superman was no good. And I ended up losing my Batman very quickly. Tico came in with a critical hit twice in a row on my Green Lantern, and, well, I was stuck with Atomica and Superman after that. So when I went with my next step was to run away with Superman a little bit and try to recatch my footing. So the goal was he pushed his Vanisher to get out there, and having tested a team involving Vanisher, no Vanishers dial back in front. So I knew that using the Hypersonic Superman, I only needed the 4 damage that he does to kill Vanisher and then be safe from that mobility that he had in this team. And I'd be in a better position to possibly use that Superman significantly more and just kind of hit and run. Well, things didn't want to go my way on that one. I couldn't nail a 5 to hit. So it was just an attack, and Superman ran carrying Atomica. He was eventually able to base my team again and murder my Superman. After this, I had one big action with an Atom that I had on my sideline, courtesy of the round table, which did enough damage to his team to put him in a dangerous position. Because the dials on his team aren't particularly long, but he does have possessors on his Clarion and his.
That'll extend their life a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. But Atom sees through all of that, does some penetrating damage, and kind of gets me there. So at this point now, Proteus is on the board. I get him a little bit of a distance away in order to try to regroup something. Something's got to give. I do manage a couple pulse waves off of him. Still not enough. I had Doc Ock, Clarion, and one other thing left. His Ultron was dead, and Vanisher left. But at this point, all of them have 1 or 2 clicks left in life, and I just didn't have enough to finish it off. So Jimmy won that. I only scored 30 points off of killing the Ultron. Second game, I played against the same opponent Tom had from the first round, and this is a player who is relatively new to competitive play. So he had an X-23, Professor X, the Magneto Uncommon, the one that gives you the once per game running shot, which I actually at one point in the game explained to him how that worked, because Magneto was another part of the testing phase for me. I can't remember what the other figure was now, Tom.
You mentioned Professor X, Magneto, X-23, and well, why am I even said it earlier and I'm blanking on it anyway?
Yeah.
I'll remember it. Carry on with the story. I'll remember it.
So ultimately, his goal was send the Emma Frost. Thank you. That's what it was, to get a ton of perplex. Good strategy on all around. He sent the X-23 at my face, going after Superman. He did manage to hit. It's as I've said before, I can give myself 21 defenses all day, every day. It's not going to do me any good, because my opponents are going to roll 9s and 10s. So with that in mind, what did I do? I let him hit and let him roll the Blade's Claws, because my Superman has Invincible, and I might be able to make out of this alive if I play my cards correctly. So he rolls his first dice, rolls a 1, but X-23 lets him re-roll it, so he rolls again, rolls another 1.
Oh,
safe. Second attack of the flurry. He hits. He rolls a 6 with his blades. I have Atomica prob it, and he rolls a 1.
Oh,
dodge bolts again. Oh man,
you got to feel for him.
Believe me, I do nothing but sympathize, because when we get to the next couple of games, we can talk about some things. So I do nothing but sympathize with Sean, I believe his name was.
Yeah.
But then my team just unloaded at this point. I just kind of stuck with the wall carrying Superman, because we were in the G. Gray school. He was hiding behind the wall, and that Superman says, "What wall?" and kind of breaks through things and bashes people with pieces of the map. And my team just, from killing X-23, just went forward. He did manage to pull off a couple of pulse waves with his Magneto, and did a little bit of damage, but it wasn't enough, and I was just able to kind of push my way through the rest of it. So we get into round 3, and this is my good friend Adam. I believe Tom actually also played a game with Adam in the 4th round. Adam was running a Mary Marvel, Clarion, and a what was the other figure now? Clarion, Mary Marvel,
Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch, thank you. And this was a game that was so down to the wire.
Don't forget that Nova ID card. The all-important Nova ID card.
That Nova ID card that he ran actually ended up it did end up killing my Green Lantern, which is unfortunate. Because my Superman broke through a ton of walls to go charge it as Mary Marvel with a huge charge with an object. I did 7 damage to the Mary Marvel, which went down to 3, of course, because of the Invincible. But that's 3 damage on a dial that's not particularly thick, so I was okay with that. So Superman and Mary Marvel started to slug it out, but Mary Marvel came out on top because of a couple shots that came out from the outside with Clarion, and the Scarlet Witch I managed to just absolutely annihilate. So I got lucky in that case, killing the Scarlet Witch, taking away one of the probs. So it was just down to Clarion, who I did a little bit of damage to as well, and got rid of his probability control. Basically, it came down to my Superman off the board, my Batman off the board, because the Batman, I think, ended up finishing or getting Mary Marvel down to the final click. But because Atomica was the only other character I had, Proteus came up because Atomica's tiny, can't be equipped. So it is now time for Proteus to try to finish us off. Clarion's on his last click. Mary Marvel's on her last click. 16 defenses on the board. I have an 11 attack with Proteus. I get Atomica out of the pulse wave in order to be able to prob. First attack roll, a 4. Okay, I've got prob for just this exact reason. So Proteus uses prob. A 4. I use the CSA team ability to re-roll the dice roll again on Proteus. A 3.
Mm-hmm.
His next turn, his characters are clear. Mary Marvel, we start with Clarion, because he's the only one I can prob regen rolls on. Which is part of, when I was telling the story at first, I was just so angry about it, and I thought I re-rolled Mary Marvel, but I couldn't do that. So, he has Clarion, roll his regen. He rolls a 6. I prob it. He rolls a 6. I prob again with the CSA team ability. He rolls a 6. Mary Marvel rolls prob. $10 to the person who guesses what he rolled. A 6. I went from about to win the game to now I have lost the game. In a matter of that. So I just kind of ran away with my Atomica, and I spent a couple turns trying to think about what way I could possibly pull this off, and nothing came to me. Unfortunately, I couldn't get that number 2 on the resource dial. It didn't happen for me. So we went into round 4. So I'm now 1 and 2, and I'm just in the bottom. Just throw things out, see what happens. Throw signs at the wall. My opponent, Jesse, I believe his name is Jesse Powers, has a Beast, a Magneto, the Rare from Uncanny X-Men, and the Scarlet Witch from Uncanny X-Men as well. So this is the second Scarlet Witch I'm up against. He puts the energy shield from Magneto on Beast and just goes. So at this point, I know I have to use my perplexes and probs in order to even so much as dent this Beast. So the first attack I make, I'm not expecting much out of it. It's a 13 attack with my Superman against the 20 defense. 21.
21? Energy shield plus Proteus, 21 plus 18.
Yeah, he had Proteus on the Beast. That's right. That's what I forgot. So 21 defense. Missed. That's okay. I wasn't expecting that one to hit, but it was that I have the distance right now advantage to take that shot, so I took the shot. Why not, right?
Yep.
So he got a little closer, and now is the time to pull out the Superman the wall Superman to charge with a heavy object with a 14 attack this time. It took me 3 tries to do it, I might add, but I did hit. I needed a 7 to hit. So, and then after the hit does finally get in there, Super Senses. 7 damage out the window. And then Beast attacks and can't miss, and rolls a 6 on his blades. And my Batman gets nuked because I took the object he was standing on in order to try to do 7 damage to Beast. Everything just went poorly in that game. And again, so in hindsight, the way I look at it, when attempting to recapture the bottle, you have to read the entire game, the meta that's in there. And this is the one takeaway I have to take from it, is teams are a lot faster and a lot more action-y than they were in the last meta. So a lot of ideas that might have worked because they played slow, but they played around the green battery, aren't as fast-acting in this meta. So you got to take that into account when building your new team, and that was one thing I didn't readjust for with my team. So I had a ton of fun, don't get me wrong, even though my face, based on the way my games went, just told a different story.
Yeah,
that
it's still a
happens.
crap sandwich. We all have
It-
to eat it every once in a while.
And you know what? It was just a reminder that my dice do suck, because apparently they were way too good at nationals.
You used it all up, man.
I used it all up. So
You did.
I'm actually glad I used a bad day before Worlds.
Exactly. You know what?
So
You wash that away and
Exactly.
you drive to Ohio.
I'll lend
It
you my
does-
dice for Worlds. How about that?
it does mean I do have to kind of re-hit the drawing board, but there's a couple ideas that I was sitting on in the background that I have to bring back to the foreground. And that's just a thing that's going to come from a couple practices from here on in. I probably should have tried one of those teams in hindsight at this event, just to get a better idea of those, as opposed to a team I had no testing experience with and should have known all these blasted weaknesses out of it. So with all of that, the new meta is out and about. And the states kind of culminates into an idea, and we can get some ideas and numbers out of that, which sparks the return of Tom's charts, as
Hooray!
it were. And we have two sets of Tom's charts to go through today. We got to make a theme song.
First one segues quite nicely.
Absolutely, which is the one I was going to cover, and it is that of the idea, or the culmination of some of the numbers that we got from HC Realms throughout the day of what happened at ROC events.
Yeah.
As far as attendance goes, we actually have a question from one of the fans to address that, so we will actually address the discussion about the numbers at each event when we get there. But in the meantime, let's talk about the meta as we saw it from the ROC States, and I'm just going to replace my face with that right
Beautiful
now.
charts.
And lock
The
yourself out.
charts.
Beautiful.
All right.
charts.
So, I don't know if you can full screen that at all, so we see a
It
little better.
is full screened right now. And
Now it's on the other tab.
On your own window, click my face, or click where it is right there.
Yeah,
I
you're
did.
tapped to something else. You're looking at some girl's back.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go.
There
Right
we go. Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was
Okay.
on Facebook.
All right. So if everyone wants to take a quick look, basically, as of 1:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, the first tab is this is just basically taking a look at what people had filled out in the what was played, what won thread on the realms. So there were, at that point, I did not count the one entry from last week in Utah, only because it was a different meta. So there are basically 30 different winning teams go into formulating these statistics, and this is just basically of the winners what showed up. And again, I can only really look at the winning teams because by and large that's all people were posting. I didn't bother to put in a few of the second, third, fourths where there were any to put in because there were so few in the thread in total that I didn't want to kind of throw it. So basically 30 winning teams so far as of 1:00 today go into creating these charts. And this is basically just how did the teams break down. Very high-level stuff. But as people are looking into Worlds, as people are looking into U.S. Nationals, if the states and provincials can be considered to be a good starting gauge, then this is what you may expect to see. And here is what we got so far. So first of all, the top left, we see an exact 50-50 breakdown of theme teams and non-theme teams. So basically, there's nothing to be said for that except for the fact that anyone who says no one plays theme anymore, or anyone who says everyone's playing a theme now, neither one is true. There's simply a breakdown. If you bring a theme team, expect to both face opponents that are also playing theme and opponents that are not. Expect to be facing against people who are swarming with enormous numbers, so usually of robots at that point, or theme teams even when they've only got a couple people. The zombie team bases count as the theme team for the purposes of this, if it's your whole team. But that's how that breaks down, basically, as far as what you would expect to see. Below that, we see how is the Colossal Retaliation, now that it's legal, how is that hitting and affecting the meta? And as you can see,
Huge.
40% of the teams that were played had at least one Colossal Retaliation piece. That's huge.
Now, did that just to jump in there, did that include ID characters that, like the Atom?
Yeah, I in fact did not include ID characters. So that's 40% of the people on the force. If you brought along an ID character with, like the Atom, as Jason just pointed out, then that even increases that number further. So if your team can't handle being hit by the Atom, being hit by Brimstone, being hit by Solaris, whoever it might be, you're in big trouble, because you are practically guaranteed in a tournament that's going to run 4, 5, 6, 7, however many rounds it's going to be to get through these big tournaments, you're all but guaranteed to go up against it. Also, speaking of things that are going to be on virtually every team, Ultron drones. 43% of the teams played include an Ultron drone. Again, almost half the teams have an Ultron drone, and each one of them has the ability to bring out a Nick Fury or other similarly expensive character through an ID card. So just keep that in mind. However, that also means that 43% of the teams out there, 43% of the teams that were won came in with a figure that was 2 clicks deep. So, it's just one of those things to think about. You're definitely going to go against it, so what do you do when you see it? Going up to the next bit, we have entities versus non-entities. This is kind of an interesting one. 30% of the teams have an entity, the other 70 do not. As we know, there's really only 3 entities now, such as they are. I mean, there's 4, because you've got Jocasta, Brainiac, Eclipso, and Proteus, is what I was considering entities for the purposes of this. Less than a third of the teams have any of the above. Still, lots of them out there, but I think if you compared that number to the winners last year, you would see an enormous drop.
Yeah, it was like 80% last year, probably.
Probably closer to 90.
Yeah,
Of just
pretty
winners.
enormous. Yeah, if we're just looking at winners. And so, yeah, of the winners, lots of teams without them. And, of course, when you're playing a Quinjet team, you're trying to get as many characters as possible for more ID cards. When you're playing a zombie team base, you're playing a zombie team base. There's a lot of different builds that just don't leave room for the entities, and even those that do, a lot of them just aren't getting through. So entities are still very much a thing. I mean, let's consider 30% of the teams that won at States had one of 4 different figures on it. So definitely, they're still there in a major way. But that way is going down. ID cards. 43% of the field actually had no ID cards, which surprised me, but it does mean that conversely, 57% of the field, more than half, has at least 1 call-in. You can't take it for granted. You can't forget about it. I know that may seem very low level, but I still feel the need to stress that make sure you're looking at the side of the board. It's so easy to forget the ID character that's there on your opponent's team if you're really focused on what they're doing. If they're pulling off some kind of really interesting strategy or whatever, and you're really trying to get it on top of what they're considering, not everybody that plays ID cards is playing a Quinjet or a Round Table. Some of them just have that one thing, like that Nova ID card is a perfect example of that. I forgot about it. Anyone on Adam's team could bring in that Nova at any time to pulse wave me for 2 damage apiece, and he caught me unawares at one point, KO'd my Nighthawk, knocked Mixie deep down the dial, and hurt my Superman, all because I just forgot it was there. I could have positioned better. I forgot. So don't forget. But past that, we see 1 to 2 ID cards, 20%, 3 to 5, 7%, and 6 plus, 30%. So just under a third of the field has 6 plus ID cards. Obviously, a lot of that is round tables, and in fact, all of that is round tables or Quinjets, frankly. But they're there. Though the things that are less common actually are the 3 to 5 slot. And finally, on this page, what was the resource breakdown? Now, I considered a zombie team base to be a resource in this case only because obviously you can't play a resource with it, and it was so populous that I wanted to put it in the chart. So this is basically the resource plus a zombie team base, or I guess all team bases, but the zombies were the only ones that won, on a chart. 30% Pandora's Box represents the biggest single number. So while as we are talking a lot about zombie team bases, and we're talking a lot about Quinjets, and we're talking a lot about the dual Corianders and so forth, Krangs, there is a lot of Pandora's Box out there being played as well. So definitely take a close look at that resource, much more than there is the 7% ROC Fraternity. Nobody won with the Supreme Intelligence as of 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today on that thread. 10% of the field was playing no resource whatsoever, which is a pretty small number still. But it is a larger number than it perhaps it might have been previously. 20% of the Quinjet is slightly less than the combined total for the Round Table and Teleporter, but it's still quite prevalent, and Zombie Team Base alone represents almost a fifth of the field. So that is the first chart. Anyone have any comments on that particularly?
I have a couple comments about the page in general.
Go for it. Before we go on
I like to have Ultron drones right next to Colossal Retaliations because the Atom loves playing against Ultrons.
Yeah.
He does.
Because if you're playing 2 of them, there's just 60 points gone right there, which is a great trade-off for the 20 points you're probably giving up.
Yeah, it really counters
I
that.
take that trade any time. I can see why the ending numbers are the way they are, just because Proteus is so good, and then just based on powers of the current entities we have compared to the last ones, we have topped out Precision Strike now, which we did not have when Warlight started. And then Psychic Blast and Stealth, which each of them have, were not common, only Parallax had them, but there's a lot of powers there that you weren't getting before. So I can see why entities are still very prevalent. It's also interesting to see 40% Quinjets and tables, but only 30% 6+ ID cards. So people were playing Quinjets, but not playing maximum ID cards, which is interesting. Possibly. There's somewhere between 3 to 5, based on the numbers.
Well, it says, I see what you mean. Yeah, I would imagine that the round table actually contributes more to people not playing out the full number of ID cards, but yeah.
Well, given that the Quinjet alone is only 140 points, counts for 3, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But in either case, somebody's playing an ID card-based team and not using maximum ID cards.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't.
And there's an interesting
thing. Somewhere in the 5 ID cards makes up that missing loot, because there will be round tables with 5 ID cards in some cases.
Yes.
Yeah. There's one other thing that I think is worth noting that is a physical problem with the game, in that sometimes there's not enough room to do all the setup you want to do of your actual team. Normally, when I'm playing my 9 ID cards, I like to set them all out flat and put the characters with them, so it's abundantly clear that they are both there and who is on what. But in a fair amount of my games yesterday, the other day, I found that I couldn't do that, and I had to just put all my ID cards in a stack, and then making it much less visually clear to my opponent what exactly I had, which is unfortunately no fault of my own, but still could be a detriment to my opponent when it's not instantly clear what's exactly going on there. So that could be an issue that might have to be adjusted someday.
Well, I think part of that is a venue issue. I know the table setup we initially had at the Comic Warehouse wasn't exactly how I would have set up the tables. I would have had 1 or 2 more tables upstairs, which ended up how it worked in the last round. Mostly so that everybody had a fair amount of space, because I know that the current metagame facilitates, or needs to be facilitated with, gigantic sidelines. I think I maxed out my sideline with 90% of the teams that I've built so far. And I've had one team that didn't do it, and it had no sideline. So it's a difficult thing to manage right now. And just if you are running a major event as a venue, what you're in charge of, be sure to account for this right now. If you're playing a competitive 300 modern tournament where you expect people to play their hardest, expect the need for a lot of space with all these sideline elements that are going to be out there. A lot of people are filling up their 9-slot sidelines in a 300-point game these days. Not shocked at all about Pandora's Box's numbers, though, saying as we were entering this meta that I think it is the resource that is going to do. It's going to stand out a little bit more than most, but not necessarily full. I would like one day to go through that Pandora's Box breakdown and see how many of them are full. I'd almost venture 0% of those.
I imagine a lot of them would only have 2 relics. Because the 2 slot on the first 2 sections you can choose from are amazing. I mean, one is Running Shot and Prob, and the other one is Charge and Perplex. I mean, that's awesome.
And it's also good with the box that even when you lose a character, you don't click it back, because you only do the actual clicking when you assign a relic. So
exactly, when that power action happens.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Next tab is very simple, but I find it amusing. So this is the trending strategies, and this is a bit more abstract. This is just basically saying, taking a look at what is winning in general. We've got, of the 30 winners that were tracked at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, we had 20 people winning with a Windjet. We had 17 people winning with The Walking Dead, that is to say, of course, the zombie team base. 13% of the winners were, I want a body. That's Krang teams, in other words.
Krang does not understand that joke. Krang doesn't need to understand it.
2 bunches of coriander represented 7% of the overall victories. Also 7% is the Robo Swarms. That was just basically, other than Krang teams, robot-themed teams with just enormous numbers of drones, ID cards, and colossal retaliations. And 37% other. The only real thing I would say to take away from this chart, other than just that other than just what's obvious, is that 37% of other means that only about a third, like a little more than a third of the teams that won, were doing anything other than the 5 other big ones. And frankly, of the 5 other big ones, the Double Coriander and the Robo Swarm were pretty minor. It's really Krang, Zombie Team Base, and the Quinjet that have dominated more than 50%, or actually about 50%.
It is exactly 50% actually, based on these numbers.
Based on these numbers, they don't actually add to 100 because of some rounding issues, but suffice to say, it is basically half the field is going to be one of those 3 things. If you're not playing it, then be prepared to play against it. Because on average, if you play in a 3-round tournament, you're going to be playing against at least one of those strategies, at least once, maybe twice. And again, I'm only speaking of the winners here, but that is to say, these are the things that are getting through. It's almost depressingly difficult these days, it would seem, to get through without one of the major dominant strategies. But that's what's there. So if you're going to show up and you're not going to play one of the dominant strategies, then think very hard about what you're going to do when you face one of the dominant strategies. And if you are going to play one of the dominant strategies, know how you're going to deal with a mirror match, and you know how you're going to deal with the other big ones that are there. Because your Krang team is not that original anymore.
You are not a unique snowflake.
You are not a unique snowflake.
It's kind of cool that the turtles have made it.
Be ready to see what happens when your opponent's Krang is also on the board and he wins initiative. Yeah. Be ready to see what happens when your Windjet runs afoul of a Zombie Team Base and vice versa. And never forget about the fact that you can't always rely on being able to make ranged attacks as long as Double Coriander is still out there. Know that not everyone who has Colossal Retaliation is doing it with one figure that might come over and deal some damage. They might have a whole fleet of Colossal Retaliation pieces that are ready to just chew you apart. So, yeah, you know what I'm getting at. This is an interesting slide. Half of the winners fell into one of 3 buckets.
Yeah. Whereas last year, there were no complete mirrors in the entire thing that was reported.
Certainly nothing.
From what I remember, anyway.
Certainly, there was no dominant trend per se.
No. Well, I mean, the dominant thing was everybody used a battery, but you know, it's just,
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the Quinjet team, admittedly, is very flexible. There's a lot of different variations of that. The Zombie Team Base, far less so. Krang, also quite flexible. You know, not everyone's using Justin's Favorite with them, but most people are, it would seem. But all the same, you know, that is the principle of the thing is there. Anyway, I've said enough.
There's some interesting. No, I needed the charts. I was going to say words.
Did you not get the email?
No, I don't think so.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I gotta.
Well, as far as the Quinjet goes, there are before you even go to the ID cards. There's already variations in. My version used a theme team versus using the obvious drones, and then maybe even adding Colossal Retaliations on top of that. Because like Isaac's team used an Atom on top of the Atom ID card. So even before you start taking into account what exact ID card you're using, you already have variation there.
Mm-hmm.
And the other dominant strategy that I'm noticing, well, between the 3% there, it seems like the current dominant strategy is you have your team, and then you have some sort of strategy to make more attacks than you should be able to. Because Krang gets multiple attacks from Justin Sabert, Zombie Team Base pops out extra characters on top of already being a character, and then the Quinjet just pops off just a bounty of extra characters on top of what you already have. So you're having to deal with a lot of attacks, so you probably would want something that could be durable and take all those attacks, which is one of the things that the Quinjet thankfully can do nicely, especially with its trait, as does the Team Base. But in a Krang versus Krang mirror match, the one that hits first is probably going to be the one that takes it.
You bet.
So, interesting stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, also, before I forget, it's worth noting that in one of the states, one of the teams that won was Mike's exact team.
Yeah.
Pseudo
right
congratulations.
Right
down to the relics. Yeah,
it's also worth noting that in one of the states, the winner was a 300-point Beyonder.
Really? That's amazing.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe you.
I love that.
I don't believe that. Sorry.
I credited it. I mean, maybe he was trolling, but I credited it.
Yeah, it's a thing, and it's a good fond farewell to the dude. That could be one of those situations where he just read the local meta and said, "Well, none of these guys are going to bring these things that are actual threats. Let's play a Beyonder."
Now Tom has to win Worlds so he can make a new one.
That's true.
I hate this
Beyonder, the pure come at me, bro.
Shenanigans. Yeah.
Well, his sculpt is just like, let's do it.
Yep.
Fight.
All right.
Absolutely. All right. So,
All right,
Oh
more
my
charts.
god.
more charts now.
I'll go way
Actually,
quicker.
let me preface this one. So we've gone through the new meta. We're really excited that it's still growing. We're going to need some more sets to see more diversity right now.
That hasn't
Right now,
settled yet.
the smallest it's going to be. So we're going to go, bigger. When more sets come out, like the Superior Spider-Man foes, things are going to get a little bigger. So
Don't mean to be contradictory, but it will be the smallest it will be after Worlds because of Guardians.
But nothing's really going to happen after Worlds, right? Because after Worlds, we'll have Superior Spider-Man, which means it resettles back to where it's going to be again.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. There's nothing really in between that and our Canada Cup.
But also to re-contradict myself as well, it'll be more diverse because who knows what Superior Spider-Man is going to add. That Spider-Gwen already looks insane where she comes back to the top click if you get her stuck in her last click. So there's a lot of neat stuff that could come from that, but we need to see more on that. But without further ado, let's talk Civil War and its additions to the game, as it were.
You bet.
Am I full screen now, or?
Not quite. It's the only thing on the screen, but you haven't
you have to
expanded
maximize the actual thing.
Let me just. What I have to do is this, and then I have to do this, and then I have to screen share this, and there we go. Right?
There we go. We're there.
Yeah, there you
All
go.
right.
Well done.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, Tom.
So
Give us a breakdown of Civil War.
I'll motor through this one a little bit for a couple different reasons. Number one, Civil War is a smaller set anyway. Number two, a lot of this won't come as a surprise to anybody. And number three, and perhaps most importantly, because it's not being done in a traditional sealed, this is more just to think of what is this set contributing to the meta at large than specifically what are you building with and doing in the events. Because in the events, it's Battle Royale style. You're going to play what you pulled and what you pass, obviously. And so we're not thinking about keywords and team abilities and so forth for the purposes of synergy within a Battle Royale setting. That's going to be largely randomized. This is what is this set contributing to the going forward meta of the game. So, with no further ado, here we have the top 12 keywords, named and generic. You can't really see the legend down there at the bottom, but I can tell you the name keyword legend goes up to about 20 at the top. And the generic one, I can't exactly see, but it's about 10 or so.
12. 12 is your peak. Yeah.
So obviously, pro and anti-registration are the biggest name keywords of the set. That's pretty obvious. Just about everybody who's not neutral has one or the other. Avengers, massive influx of adventures. Well, not massive, but a large influx of adventures. A bunch of new Thunderbolts. Young Avengers get some love. Marvel Knights are getting some love. And the Heroes for Hire are getting some love. And then we have a few new Warriors, Masters of Evil, Lady Liberators, Kree, Initiative. You're getting pretty small by the time you get down there.
Mm-hmm.
So, by and large, we're looking at new Avengers, new Thunderbolts, and a little bit of other stuff. On the generic keyword front, though, Scientist comes away in a major way, followed by Soldier, and we just keep getting more and more soldiers. I would be interested, and perhaps one of these days I will put together a chart of the new modern and what the big generic keywords are, because, I mean, Mystical is very large, as it always has been. Scientist is always very large. But Soldier, in the past, has always been sort of a middle grounder, it would seem. But boy, has it ever seemed to be jumping ahead within the last 5, 6, 7 sets. Celebrity, of all things, is up there. And I think that's largely because of the Thunderbolts that are all celebrities. Is that?
Some of the Thunderbolts, and I think they might have given it to an Iron Man.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think the Iron Man is celebrity as well. I'll look it up.
Armor, Spy, still big, Martial Artist, and then we just get some miscellaneous over there. No, not a significant influx of Robots or Mystical, which again are huge in the meta at large. Not so big as far as this set is concerned, but lots of science. Anyone have any thoughts on this, or?
Beware the growth of the pirates, yar! Yar! Generic pirate keyword be making its mark, you see. Yar!
I don't know, I went into a weird leprechaun mode. I love science! Science!
Beware the stranger soldiers, sirs.
And Iron Man is not a celebrity, from what I'm looking at right here.
Okay. Yeah. It was one of the thoughts I think I could think of off the top of my head. So it's probably just the Thunderbolts.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Oh, you know what? No, it's gonna be some of the new Warriors too.
Is that what it is? Okay, I knew. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, because they were televised.
I was trying to remember which one it was where they all got it. Yeah.
That's the whole reason the thing went down is they wanted to be celebrities instead of superheroes.
That's true. Well, like you became celebrities, all right.
Or like
Hercules is a celebrity.
Yep. He always seems to have that one. It's weird.
Yeah.
All right. The next slide is very depressing. Last set, we had a huge influx of team abilities, and I got super excited, and I raved about it on the show and said, yes, yes, more of this. But they didn't hear me, and now virtually everybody in the set doesn't have a team ability. Past that, there's a tiny spattering of Avengers and Spider-Man. For what's worth, wildcards are awesome, and anytime that we get new wildcards, I'm happy to get them. Within the context of this set, the only thing you're going to be wildcarding is more Avengers. Everything below that, I think, is one character each at Sinister Syndicate. Power Cosmic Minions of Doom.
Defenders.
Defenders.
Yeah, Goliath's Defenders.
So yeah, not much you can do about any of that. Not much to say about this chart. Too bad.
This is just a chart of sadness. Let's move on.
Unfortunately, that's basically as much as we're going to get anymore.
Yeah. Now I always update this chart so the top lines, which are the modern age point distribution by character, includes the current set. So the top one is everything including Civil War. The bottom is Civil War, and this chart will come as no surprise to anyone because of the stratified nature of this event. Then they are trying to match up point values within certain brackets. So obviously everyone is falling into the 51 to 90 point range by and large. Keep in mind I did include like the prizes and stuff in this, so you get little outliers.
Three other ones.
Night Nurse and Sentry at the opposite end.
And Captain Marvel
Night Nurse,
as well.
Sentry and Captain Marvel make up those other ones. The other two, the Captain America and Iron Man, hit up the 80s, and everything is either 60, 70, 80, or 90 points in the set.
Oh, Night Nurse.
But that's a big boat. I mean, if you remember last set, we talked about the X-Men and the fact that the big boosts in X-Men were around the 50-point mark, and then there was a moderate boost more around the 90 to 100-point mark. So this is filling out the difference between the two a little bit. So the current modern age is definitely an under 100 focus, and that focus stays. But you've got a little bit more balance between every one of the lines. So the 50 line is very similar to the 71 to 80 line, which is pretty similar to the 91 to 100 line. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, this one's got to be the least shocking because of the specifically standard point values they set up for the set.
Yeah.
So next up.
Okay, combat values. So remember that the blue lines represent their values on the first click, and the orange lines represent the average values across all the clicks of their dial.
Right.
Where there is a difference between the two, obviously range and clicks of life are constant. So for movement, we see the biggest spike is at 8, with a bit of fall away towards 9. So by and large, everyone's moving 8 or 9, and then that shifts down basically an average of 1, so that 7, 8 becomes the average for the set. As a 7.5 average movement is pretty slow, really. And that's your movement. Attack values, quite stable. By and large, the average is 10, and it's very strong on that average. The difference is mainly that on the first click, it'll skew a bit more towards 11, and on average, it's skewing more towards 9. So this is a set where a little bit more than X-Men, actually, the attack values do fall away. These aren't. I'm not saying that they're top click wonders necessarily, because the averages are still pretty strong. But by and large, if you're gonna have an advantage, it's gonna be top dial. So watch your pushes.
Who has the 12 attack?
I can't remember offhand.
Maybe Sentry later dial.
No, it's Bullseye.
Bullseye, yes.
Oh,
correct.
Yeah, that guy. I love that guy.
Yeah. Defense. Again, right around 17. We're going to see this. I'm glad I'm doing the first click and full dials for every set now moving forward, because we just see it hammered into us yet again. The attack and defense averages wind up looking almost exactly the same. You could practically overlay the one chart above the other. You need a 7 in this game. You will always need a 7 in this game, it would seem. They very much balance to the average roll. And 7 is as close to a 50% chance as you can get with 2d6. Because it's slightly above that, then it always seems to favor the attacker just a little bit. But by and large, 17 defenses, a fair number of 16s averaging across the dial, which is not great in this day and age, and 18s are harder to come by. So this is not the most well-defended set, but part of that is the fact that these are pretty much all low-point characters. You got to expect that you're going to see that reflected somewhere. You're also going to see it reflected in the damage values, which 3 is by far the biggest. Much more so aimed a little bit towards 3 on the top dial, even than X-Men was in a way. Almost everybody can crack invulnerable off the top of their dial. However, on average, 2 takes over. So this is much like attack, one of these things that you do expect your damage to fall away. You'll see when we get later in the charts that the combat expert powers really come to the fore in the late dial of this set. So don't necessarily expect that you're losing the ability to do damage as you go down the dial, just trading out general damage dealing for a more specific version.
Yeah. One note about the set itself: if you pull a stature, she kind of defies the odds in terms of attack ability, because she has 2 traits. One of them allows you to choose either anti or pro, and then she gets +1 attack versus the characters that have those alignments. And on top of that, at the beginning of your turn, you can choose to make her a Colossal. And if you do, she gets +1 attack for that turn. I'm not sure whether it's other stats as well. I can't remember.
It's just attack.
But if you do, she takes 1 unavoidable. And so she can be quite a beast in one hit, especially since she has super strength.
Well, and the other thing about stature is that she definitely throws the curve in terms of clicks of life. She's 8 clicks deep, and almost nobody is. Yeah. Before we get there, though, I will mention range. At just between 35 and 40% of the set doesn't have range, which means that you are looking at range for well over half the set. However, those ranges are pretty modest. As you can see, the 4 is the biggest spike of them all, followed by 5, followed by 6. So it's a short range set. As far as new characters coming into the meta, with the sniper rifle having dropped away, people are dealing with the ranges that they've got, and this set is largely only contributing to those who can shoot within your opponent's charge range, by and large. So, even though more than half the set has range, it tends to be so small that it's fair to say this is another set that supports the general move towards close combat being more viable. And finally, clicks of life. Well over 50% of the set, nearly 60% of the set actually, is 6 clicks deep. And almost everyone else is 5. So this is one thing that you can keep in mind as you go into your battle royals. Expect that your opponent is either 5 or 6 clicks. Just look at their point value, and you can usually guess at which one it's going to be roughly. It's almost always going to be 5 or 6, unless it's stature, and then her dial just seems like it goes on and on. 8-click dial seems like a monster in a set where that is incredibly rare.
Yeah.
Any comments on this, guys?
If there was one thing I wanted to take away from this, is that you mentioned that the movements are very slow, and I think part of that was to facilitate the design of the Battle Royale format, as well as keeping those attacks and defenses relatively average. You didn't want the games to go too quick, but you don't want them to go too long either. So if you keep things average, there'll be some misses, some hits, and generally the game will just kind of flow as it does. And then, like I said, movement... And when you have the extreme cases, those are going to be the characters like Speed Freak, who's an outlier, but he's also a very short dial. He's one of the ones that's actually the few on the short system.
Oh my god,
dude. What a dial it is in
Killbox.
Yeah. Love him. So. Love
him. That's kind of my takeaway on this one. Anybody else want to add anything? Or?
It's good to see that the clicks of life and damage are such that you're not going to be one-shotted all the time. And even among the super strength in the set, they're all under 100, so no ultra heavies are happening. So if your character has toughness, they're never being one-shotted by a super strength character in this set. So
in fact, even if they don't, by and large, 3. It's very rare that anyone has 4 damage plus anyway. So at super strength and 3 damage, you're still not one-shotting them with a heavy. A lot of the time, that is.
Yeah, it takes at least a couple good hits. I think the best character in terms of pure attack in this particular instance is probably the Punisher. He just mangles everybody. It's insane to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Bullseye is great, and then of course Stature, as we were saying before, she kind of defies the odds in general in this set.
Bullseye is great, but they seem to be toning down his range from the Web of Spider-Man 10 to the Deadpool 8 to a 6 now. So that's interesting to see.
Yeah, but he has 12 attack.
I'm not ignoring
accuracy
that, and he has
about range. Yeah.
Yeah, he has the same improved charging, I believe, as the old one.
Yeah.
But still, it's just
Also,
his range is being nerfed a little.
Also, don't overlook your She-Hulks or your Herculeses, as
that's great.
Starting 4 is pretty rare, and the fact they've got it and the heavy object actually means that they're some of the few that actually can do some one-shotting, and their dials are thick enough and heavy enough on reducers that they can probably survive the retaliation.
Yeah, I actually had 2 She-Hulks on my team. And that was pretty nasty. Although one of them got KO'd by Hercules, like you're saying, because he's
good too.
Crazy good.
He does what Sir Hercules do.
Yeah.
And now let us talk about powers a little bit. So, 2 charts. The one on the left is the powers in the starting click. The one on the right is the powers averaged across the dial. And thanks, Mike, for the suggestion that we update the colors on this chart to be the colors of that power, which I have done. And so, if you're just looking at it at a glance, you can very quickly see the sea.
So much pink.
My God, there's so much sidestep.
Yeah, 1/3 of the clicks of life of the entire set has sidestep. And it really does feel like they just gave sidestep to absolutely everybody if they couldn't think of anything else. Because look at the average of none. The average of none is 3% across all the clicks of the dial. And yet the sidestep is at 32%. You've got, this is one of these things where if this set came out 3 years ago, you assume that there'll be like 35% empty clicks. Now they're all sidestep.
Well, and there's 0 have none on their starting click.
Exactly. So it again is one of these things where, because we're talking more about what does this set contribute to the larger Heroclix scheme, like we can talk about it with regards to Battle Royals, but particularly what does this do? What it does is it gives the ever-continuing trend of tons of sidestep, even more sidestep. It is a sidestep-heavy game at this point, and it seems like it's only going to become more so as more and more figures come flooding in. Other than that, lots of charge. Lots and lots and lots of charge. But at least we have a nice little spattering of opening running shot now.
Yeah.
More than we have seen a little bit. Hypersonic speed is Speed Freak and no one else. A lot of other things, very, very small. Almost everything is represented, but it's represented in very small fashions. And the only thing that really substantially changes when you go from the starting click averages to the averages across the dial is you see flurry increases considerably. Remember how I was saying earlier that as damage values go down, you see the ability to do more damage reflected in other ways. You'll see that when we get to the close range combat expert later, but you see it with flurry as well. A lot of characters getting flurry when they lose the ability to just have the bigger numbers. So going down your dial doesn't necessarily mean that your damage output is going down. It just means that your damage values are going down. And you've got other things that are in place to compensate for it. And that's what I have to say. Any other observations there?
Is the
So
top dial?
much sidestep.
I love it. And it only goes out.
It kind of hurts my face to look at that side of the pie.
Yeah.
Like,
You don't like to look at the pink 5, Mike?
So much pink.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The top dial flurry is charge and flurry, right? Because I know the pro registration Spider-Man gets it, and I'm sure.
Yep.
I'm sure nobody has a top dial just as a power on its own.
Yeah, I don't think anyone does. You're right.
I would hope.
I can't think of anybody, if there is anybody, and if there is, there's like one character. But I think you're right.
I'm gonna look it up out of curiosity.
That's right.
Move on. No, move on. I'll get back to you.
All right. Attack powers.
The gradient color is a none. So, once again, much like the last set, they're far more inclined to leave blank dials on the attack than they ever are in the movement. Likewise in the damage when we get there. Attack and damage, they seem to just be like... They seem to start by saying, what movement power should they have? What defense power should they have? Should they have anything else? And the answer seems to come up none a lot of the cases. In fact, almost half of the clicks of life in the entire set. have no power on them. Of the ones that are big, Super Strength actually has the largest individual chunk besides Precision Strike. And wow, is Precision Strike ever coming to the fore? Because you may recall in World's Finest there was extremely little. There wasn't very much in Superman Wonder Woman. We got a bit more in X-Men, and now we see it's starting to really come through again. Much more also than Psychic Blast in a major way. So this is a set that further contributes to the unreliability of super senses. They seem to have stopped giving people Mastermind these days. It's such a rare power. But anyway, you can't trust it to work. And Precision Strike is especially a top dial heavy thing, you'll notice. It's one of the things that falls away as you go through the dial. So does Incapacitate, ironically. But just about everything does, considering that the Nun will not be stopped. Blade's Claw's Fangs, however, does go up as you look into the later clicks, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but once again, another way of dealing more damage when your damage value goes down. And that we see that. There's not very much Pulse Wave. Not much of anything else to talk about, but for what it's worth, there seems to be more Incapacitate than we're used to, but let's not forget that this is also just a small set. So there's not really that many more Incapacitate pieces. It's just a small fewer pieces.
I'm a little upset about the lack of poison because this means I have to roll dice. This is unacceptable.
That's true.
This is absolutely unacceptable.
1%.
Wait, there is top dial poison, I thought, because doesn't Radioactive Man have it?
No, it's not poison. It's an ability that kind of acts like poison, but it isn't poison.
Yeah,
Tom, I have a question about your numbers and stuff.
Sure.
How does Taskmaster fit into all this, considering his trait?
It's a good question. I'm trying to remember what I did when it got to Taskmaster. I think that what I did for Taskmaster is I suppressed him for the starting click numbers, and I included everything, obviously, on the full dial numbers, just so it wouldn't throw.
That's reasonable.
Because it would affect all the starting clicks kind of equally.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I looked up the flurry thing. So the Spider-Man has it. Taskmaster can get it if he picks it with his trait, and then the Venom actually starts off with it as a regular standard power, but has traded sidestep. So
I also like the fact that with his traded regeneration, I think it is it that or Steel Energy? Steel Energy. He's one of the only ones he's the guy who gives us Steel Energy on his top click. When I first looked at it, I was like, is that a mistake? And then I remembered it was Venom.
Yeah. All right. Moving on from offense to defense.
Hello, Willpower. It's been a while since I've seen you. Again,
you just called Indomitable for a while?
Yeah, I don't separate out Indomitable. So the other thing to remember is that just about everybody who has a Willpower is Indomitable, and that's a third of the set, which is big. Notwithstanding that, it's a toughness-heavy set, and Jay's comment earlier that even the people who do have slightly higher damage values aren't necessarily getting one-shot KOs. This is very much borne out by the fact that between toughness and vulnerability, you're covered off at about a third of the clicks in the set, notwithstanding Willpower. When you adjust out for Willpower, then that's more like half the set. You include Invincible and Impervious, and that's more than half. And so you're definitely not going to get too many one-shot KOs. However, other than that, not a lot of surprises. There's lots of super senses to go with lots of Precision Strike. So if you've got super senses, don't trust it.
Don't count on ever rolling it anyway.
There's that.
Although I did notice that the Spider-Man has it traded. I'm sure others do as well. And then like the Iron Spider has like Shape Change traded. So you're not necessarily getting just that on your dial.
Absolutely, you've got more than one thing in a lot of cases. Again, no Mastermind. So if you like, there's just no Mastermind. There actually, I think, is a tiny amount of Mastermind, or maybe it actually is 0 all the way through. There's a tiny amount of none. It's amazing to me that even on all the clicks of of life in the whole set, there is so little none. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very little regeneration too. So when the damage goes through, it's going to stick in a lot of cases. So look for that. Not much defend. Everyone's got to fend for themselves. Combat reflexes does come up later in the dial as your numbers are falling, though, as you would expect.
That's usually through the toughness that you
that top dial will finish Night Nurse. It's not even like actually.
Yeah, that's not even actually something you count on in the game, and it's really not a defend that you're going to be bringing into the meta. It's a defend you're using to facilitate support.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you actually want them to hit your figures for, like, a reason. I'm sure there's a reason.
Give me a reason.
But yeah, lots of toughness. What more can I say?
So tough.
But a fair amount of willpower.
Yeah.
And finally, the damage powers. Huge numbers of people don't have a damage power. Massive. Almost half. And once again, much like in Uncanny X-Men, more people pick up damage powers than lose them on average.
Yeah.
Other than that, what you see is a fair spread of different powers, a lot of starting leadership, which is always encouraging. That's especially encouraging with the Battle Royal format, but even when we're talking about the general meta, it still absolutely has its place. Empower is it's nice to see that kind of coming into its own a little bit more than it usually does, and this is where you really see the spike in close combat expert over the course of the dials. Not too many people start with it, but it goes up enormously when you look at the whole dial on average. Again, it's not enormous, it's 15% of the clicks of the dial, but that's still a big jump up from the starting clicks, and that's what I was alluding to earlier. Range Combat Expert also goes up, though less significantly. There is not very much Prob at all. There is not very much Perplex, there is not very much Outwit. So your big three support powers are not being contributed to in a meaningful way as far as the meta is concerned, but we are getting in more ready sources of leadership and shape change, the most annoying and greatest defense power of them all that isn't even on the defense lot.
Yeah. I can't even think of any prob in this set outside of Wiccan, who's already super rare, and then it's in the format it's literally impossible to get a theme team. So
yeah,
when you're rolling dice, what you see is indeed what you get.
You bet, baby.
Yeah. This means I actually have to rely on my dice rolls on Saturday. Oh my god, I can't handle. I'm so heartbroken about what Civil War is going to be for me this Saturday. Oh boy. But overall, thanks, Tom, as always, for the charts. We do enjoy them, and
My
quite a few
pleasure.
of our fans do quite enjoy them as well. So we're all more than happy to do our part and get them in there. Tom, if you ever need a hand, always let me know. I love this stuff. I know I actually gave you the numbers on the as an observation on the point values in the set at one point. So
Yeah, totally.
so on that note, we're gonna skip the team builds because we got a little late with the charts and our explanations of the tournament. And we'll move our Gamora teams to next week, along with whatever other figure I decide we're going to do next week as well. But it's time for fan questions. So if you guys are watching right now, if you're on YouTube, put it in the comments below. If you got here through Facebook, put it in the comments of the Facebook link that you followed to get here so that we can get your fan question in here before the end of the show. The first question we got today was actually more of a request for a team. That I'm going to present to you guys after the episode, but he wants to see a Brood team on the pre-show game one day, so we'll have to look into that.
Brood or Brute?
Brood. As in,
Brood.
like,
We'll have to borrow some then.
yeah. So we'll figure that out, but I know next week
Have a
there's going
bunch.
to be no pre-show game because, unfortunately, Mike will not be joining us for the show next week.
No, I have a visitor from Brazil, actually. So I will be busy entertaining.
Erotic.
So, unfortunately, he won't be able to entertain you guys. So, on that, next question comes from Matt Wallace. What's up, Metalab? What would be an official ruling on Malice being possessed by Proteus? When Malice leaves the field to equip to another, does Proteus jump, or how does that work? We've had
That's
some
an easy
players
one.
that
Go
have
for
asked
it,
again.
Jason.
Yes, they actually made a ruling on this, and a character that would be KO'd and removed from the map, if it's not necessarily a KO, you treat it as though it's been KO'd. So if Malice would be KO'd and then would be equipped to somebody else, Proteus treats it as though Malice got KO'd and then actually moves to another character. This is something that is actually on the win system, but it's not directly in the rules forum. It is actually in the clarifications under equip. So double check that to see that in writing and not just hear it from my unfortunate voice. And his next question, why do we really not see the shifting focus Batman as much as the Superman? Is it possible he will be seen in the flash forward meta? Right now, personally, I haven't seen much of a specific place for the shifting focus Batman. As well, our sidelines are full right now with the shifting focus Superman and all his ID cards. The shifting focus Superman has a lot of offensive function, where the Batman, you have to justify the 60 points of all the stuff that he does. So while the Batman does a lot of things, the Superman does offensively so many different things and just adapts so well to the offensive game that he's a very easy and safe play, especially as well if you go into defense mode with that 19 defense character who adds +1 defense to his friends next to him. Tom, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I'm drawing a bit of a blank on how best to phrase it. I think that in large part, and feel free to disagree with me if anyone does, I just feel like the Superman justifies the difference of 30 points better as far as more direct functionality that works better. The Batman has a close combat version, and the Superman has a close combat version, but the Superman has the benefit of being able to smash through a wall, hit harder with the object that he grabbed from the wall, and survive the retaliatory attack better than the Batman version can. They both have a range combat version, but the Superman's has a much better swing and is dealing penetrating damage as opposed to focusing on in-cap lockdown. They both have well, I guess at this point they start to differentiate. They both have a support-oriented version, with one being an offensive form of support in Wit, the other one being a defensive form of support with a defend invincible, sort of. Not really defend, but, you know, it boosts up people. But again, because his numbers are so high and because his dial is so thick, it's totally worth it. And finally, there is no real proxy for the pure hypersonic Superman. The other Batman can jump in and out of the shadows, but he doesn't have nearly the kind of swing or functionality of Superman. I just feel like Superman just does everything a little bit better, to the point where I feel that he's more worth the investment of the 30 points, I guess. We could absolutely see the Batman. I can see it happening, but he's kind of hard. He's kind of easy to take off the board.
Well, to put it simply, it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort for 60-point characters versus 90-point characters, because with the 90-point version or the 90-point Superman, you do get a much more bang for your buck, and so putting in that little extra effort to use the Swiss Army knife functionality is a lot more worth it versus the 60-point less functional versions. Just putting a spin on it. It's all about time management, right? I mean, you need to be able to have your team function and function well within a non-staller time limit. The unofficial non-stalleriness of it all.
All right. Jay, anything to add there?
I was going to have a longer piece. The thing with the Superman and the Batman is that they're both costed in the realm of tertiary attackers, but when Superman is attacking, he's either hitting like a truck with his close combat, he is hypersonicking a ridiculous number of squares, he has the awesome defense, and as well as hard to take down with his good reducers, or he is just really awesome at range, including stealth-busting and extra damage on top of his already decent damage penetrating. And he's costed as a tertiary attacker, but does things way above his cost. Whereas Batman kind of just doesn't. The only one of Batman's dials that has stats that are really above his weight class would be the attacking close combat one, but even then, it's still only a top tile 12, vanilla, and 3. Nothing really special.
Yeah, well, just the attack.
The wit is okay, but you can get better for less. The attacking is the only one that stands out really is Out of the Shadows, who is just to set up to do other things, and then the in-cap one is in-cap. It's not really that special. I think Superman just ends up being ridiculously more cost-effective, and you still have a lot of room for other awesome attacking, and he can hit for 6 on one of his best dials.
And he can take a hit for 6 and survive it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So there's just some of our thoughts on the Superman. Who knows? There could be a future for him right now. It's a very different meta than we're going to see in a month. So, and there could be a facilitator for Batman in the future. Who knows? Don't lose faith just yet. But next up, Franco Harris. Hey guys, with UXM being out for a while, can each one of you guys go through your hits and misses from the set, as well as what figure unexpectedly surprised you? If you want a lot of our thoughts, go check out our piece-by-piece breakdown. We have a lot of comments about Thunderbird, to be specific.
He's our favorite.
Somebody commented on that video that we were being overly harsh, and I just want to point out we're joking around.
Yeah, absolutely. We need a joke like this. Like, Prism and Thunderbird are now officially our punching bags for this set. So
Prism can't take any shatters.
There's no hate here.
He's the new Major Victory because Major Victory is golden.
If you watch that episode too, we constantly say everything's good in this set.
Yeah, that's another thing is we had to find somebody to bully. But as I was saying, he's our new Major Victory. If you go back to my idea of introducing him to the meta in my episode of Metafix, one of the first things I do is break a Major Victory. So Major Victory is golden, so he loses impact on that one. So yeah, check out that episode.
Yeah, don't forget, Guardians is still legal.
That's all right. In my head, it's golden already. You should have seen actually earlier today. My son. Our commons and uncommons and rares from Golden Age, once we pick through the ones we're going to keep, they ended up in a bin. My son's got a hold of them, and one of my sons likes to stack figures. He put himself in a circle of Heroclix earlier today. It was pretty hilarious, actually. But Frank also goes on to ask, how are all you disliking the new low point figures for Uncanny X-Men and Civil War, the Civil War OP? I love building teams and coming up with strategies to use those teams and using formations to use those teams. Teams, I like building. I come from a Warhammer background, so I played orcs and I played Zerg. I like big, wonking, majestic armies on my side of the board. So though Heroclix is a much smaller scale, I do like the idea of having 4 to 5 figures on my team for a 300-point modern game, or in bigger games like having a massive swarm of guys just for my opponents to be overwhelmed by and watch them energy explode. What do you think of it, Tom?
I love it. I love it. I'm also a huge fan of lower point characters that are efficient and good for their value. And I think that it's just good for the game to diversify the options that we have. I mean, tentpoles are by their nature often an appealing choice when it comes to building for competitive play. But as Jay pointed out earlier, we're going into a period of near constant attacks. So you've either got to be able to survive near constant attacks by having amazing defenses or reducers or stop clicks or something, or you need to have enough people that those attacks get spread across a large enough net to still be able to survive and fight back with what you got left. And I think that more management, more team-oriented construction will lead, hopefully, to a faster-paced game with more exchanges and more actions, and to me that is just more fun. So I think from a pure fun perspective, it excites me enormously, and from a competitive perspective, I look forward to the challenge.
All right, Mike?
I had a really good time playing with them. I think that some of them are going to make their way into the competitive scene, but not a whole heck of a lot. There's the way that they've throttled the different pieces into fitting into basically 4 categories or 3 or 4 categories of actual cost, other than the prize figures themselves, it's limited while enabled certain aspects of it that really fit into the Battle Royale format itself.
All right, Jay?
It depends on the characters in a particular situation. I mean, let's say the new Taskmaster is 80 points, and Hydra tends to be a swarm, so that works well. But when certain Supermans are still around, I'm not going to want to play a less beefy Superman when there's just a beefy one out there. Overall, I think it's a good trend, especially when retirement kicks in later. But I just feel right now, like given how many good temples we still have, I don't see, let's say, the new 225-point target Superman having trouble with a 6-man X-Men team. I just see him knocking them down one by one, and then that's it for them. But I think it is a healthy trend overall, and then the more this becomes a thing and the better the teams you can make with these kind of figures, I think it will end up having a better overall game state. All
right. Now this next question is one of the ones the one I told you guys about that we were saving for later, and this is from our number one question asker, Chris Stockhouse.
Hey.
So he says, seems like states and provincials had a low turnout if you look at the averages across the board. I ended up 9th place out of 10 players at the Indiana ROC. I switched my team last minute and hadn't practiced it at all. Had I practiced, I would have realized that since I was constantly attaching sins From the box, those characters couldn't summon ID cards as often, so those were wasted points for the most part. Lesson learned. I heard Ontario had one of the better turnouts. If you were in charge of fixing and adjusting things for next year's states, what would you do differently, and what would you keep the same? See you guys soon. Origins awaits. Now, actually, Howard Brock did a pretty fantastic job in the thread that opened up about this on HC Realms. And one of the things he addressed was the space between ROC States and Origins was very small. I mean, like, it was this past weekend, then we have this weekend, and then next week is Origins. Like, Origins starts on Wednesday and goes through that weekend. So if you look at the distance of time, there's a lot of people more interested in going to Origins than that. As well, the meta is, or the new modern is just so fresh. A lot of people are just overwhelmed and not ready. So what he did point out is they were looking to go later in the year, possibly August, definitely before Rock Worlds, to give, to meter out that space. As well, it's also a dead time for major tournaments between after Worlds and whenever they plan on doing the WKOs, and even like between Rocktober and Canadian Worlds. There's a big area where the ROC can really capitalize on getting more people showing up for those tournaments. So that's one of the things he addressed. If I was in charge, that would probably be the thing I would do going into next year, because of course this is that moment where we stumbled. Okay, let's get back up on our feet again and kind of fix it. But another thing too is we really kind of amped up the prizing for our event as well. The qualifier prize kit is one of the is not of the level of the super qualifier. You do have enough prizing for a top 16, but it is maps, dice, tokens, and a lot of people lose appeal of the maps because they're not WizKid's major tournament official. But a lot of the venues who run these events say, yeah, use the ROC maps, that's cool, whatever, right? We gave them to you, you might as well let you use it, right? So these all kinds of play factors in it. And I can't outright point out what one thing really is the thing. But going into next year, they definitely want to hold it after Worlds and give themselves that a lot of time still to go to the ROC World Cup. That's kind of my ramble on it. Tom, anything to add there?
No, I agree by and large. I mean, frankly, if just to address the question of what would I do if I were in charge, I like the idea personally of using states/provincials as a way out of the no tactics into the tactics environment. I know that's not, to my knowledge, they've never done that before, so this would be a new idea rather than reclaiming something that has happened previously. But I know that the ROC calendar goes on a non-tactics period and a tactics period, and I like the idea of marking the break point by having the provincials and states as sort of a triumphant return to tactics for the ROC calendar. So if it were me, then I would like to see something like that happen. But, I mean, everyone has their own opinions, right? That's just mine. That's all I have to say.
All right, Mike?
I think that what Jason did this year was pretty awesome. I think what we did last year was actually pretty good. And what would I do differently? I guess beef up the prize kits from the ROC themselves, but there's no real way to do that reasonably because, I mean, they already cost what they cost, and for instance, the new national level it's like after the exchange and delivery, it's $1,000. Like that's a lot of money for
the heck with our dollar.
yeah. Well, our dollar is 77 cents on your dollar anyway, but I don't know how else that they can really, I guess, encourage things prize-wise because I mean, there's no way to compete with WizKids. The ROC can't support that level of prize. It's just not really possible. Yeah. And nor do they even have the creative right to make, for instance, figures, etc., other things that are playable outside of what they already do. And I love the maps, I love the tokens, I love the dice, I love the points. And thinking about it, I think that the fact that their world event it has cash prizes is kind of a big draw in itself. And in fact, having gone to that, it was such a huge level of competition, I think maybe as a result. But I think that overall encouraging, your semi-local, I guess, venue, or not the venues themselves, but the semi-local players to really focus less on the actual figures and focus more on the actual level of gameplay and getting better and treating it more like a sport. It's another way to increase attendance at large. So creating a game culture that's less about what do I get, because realistically, I like going to these things because yeah, sure I can get some cool stuff, but I really want to be challenged and challenge other people to become better at this game overall. So that being said, one of the ways that you can actually generate prizing for your local state championship, provincial or state championship, is to encourage other venues in the area to create win-a-map events that are linked to it, and then donate prizing to the main event so that it becomes a beefier thing. That's it.
All right, Jay.
Yeah, you can't really. Well, I think in particular we had good attendance because we tend to add a bunch of prizing. No thanks to you. I think we just make it a bigger deal. From what I saw from last year, I didn't go, but it seemed that you guys made it a much bigger deal with the extra trophy that you also did this year, among other
we
things.
had that last year too. It was a different one.
Yeah, I know you did that both years. So
We always demolish at least one resource for the ROC Provincials.
In fact, the prizing for both years was really, really good. Because last year everybody walked away with like a full bag of LEs and everything else, and this year the difference being that some of the 2016 con LEs were included as well. Quite a few of them, in fact. That was kind of the main difference between last year and this year in terms of prizing. So people got more last year, but this year they had, I guess, more or higher level prizes.
Yeah, that was one. That was
aside from the brick that they gave away last year.
yeah, and also Aaron did point out to me that they're within the quote unquote dead space of August. There is Gen Con, which WizKids did have a presence at last year. They did have con stuff there, so that's still a thing that people go to. So maybe August is not the best idea because that might compete.
Honestly, though, like when it comes to the Heroclix player, the Heroclix competitive player, the competitive player isn't really drawn to Gen Con anymore, unless they're also other types of gamers, in which case they might be drawn to Gen Con. But you'll find it more locally. I have a couple friends who actually used to go to Gen Con, not even related to Heroclix. They used to get them to grab me some con stuff while they were there. Usually just to buyables. I don't want to force them into battle royales because they're there to play board games and stuff. But I mean, that Gen Con is more of a general game draw as opposed to, and it's significantly less of a Heroclix draw. I don't think it's as competing as it used to be, especially with the fact that if you lay out the, hey guys, here's some more Heroclix tournaments in the middle of all that, then the people will be more drawn to that, and Gen Con will just kind of continue as it is right now without the big draw of Heroclix that it used to have. So thanks, Chris, for that discussion, giving us that discussion topic, and I just kind of wanted to give you the credit on that one. We would have talked about it sooner, but so next up, Rick Sasser says, for my first ever competitive event, being States yesterday, just want to give you a humble thank you for all the info and knowledge you guys provide week in and week out. Wound up 10th overall and had a major blast.
That's awesome.
It is pretty awesome. And his team was the 120-point Black Suit Spider-Man possessed by Brainiac, the Doc Ock, that guy, Uncommon Magneto, a Brimstone, and a Pim Particles. So,
Cool.
Congrats on 10th. I hope you were one of the bigger turnouts.
Yeah, well, I love that. I love the combination of that Spider-Man with Doc Ock. They copy the Sinister Syndicate and enjoy sharing the
Extra attack.
The extra attack, and of course he's got his 19D as well. It's such a great little piece.
Well, Tiny Spider-Man would have a 21 because his special defense Also gives +1 from range as well. Then
Crazy good, right?
Yeah,
triple
it's
rollout. Oh, that would be terrible. Good luck.
Yep.
All right. Connor's Click says, hey guys, just wondering if you could talk about nationals tips and help. I just qualified and I'm nervous. Anything helps. Thanks and keep up the great work. I do cover a lot of this on Metafix. I did an episode a while back on prepping for a big tournament, and this was like the soft skills, things to think about as far as things to pack, things to plan for in your head. We kind of cover that a lot in Metafix, but if as a general kind of thing, pay attention to things like what Tom's charts showed out is the percentage of what's doing well, because these are things you have to plan for, and when you're building your team, plan to play against those things. That side of the pie chart, as it were. And right now, that side of the pie chart is the zombie team base, the Windjet, and the Krang. Now, not necessarily, play those for sure, but plan. Just know how your team is going to function against them. I'm not necessarily saying you have to play those or you have to hard counter those, but you do have to know how you're going to do against those teams as a general whole. And beyond that, just get ready to have some fun, because that's these big tournaments for all of the nerve-wracking that you get out of it going in. In all honesty, it's like a really crowded tournament at your venue, and that's the best way to go in with it. It's taken me a while to kind of get into that mindset, but it's becoming more and more common with me. What do you think, Tom?
I agree. Yeah, pay attention to what I said. What Jason said. But it's true. Those are the things that you expect to see. You don't be naive and kind of say, well, as long as I don't see a zombie team base, then I'll be fine. Well, it's a naive attitude. You can go, by all means say, as long as I don't see, a Thunderbird, Magneto, Sabretooth Wildchild team. I don't even know. That's not a real thing, but maybe it could be. I have no idea. What I mean is that don't worry about the thing that you're not likely to see. Keep it in mind, but absolutely know about the thing that you are likely to see. And remember that when you're looking at, what am I going to do if I face this thing? Remember that you're going to have to score points. You have to win somehow. So preparing for something doesn't mean preparing to survive it. Preparing for it means preparing to have a tactic to use against it. If possible, whatever your team is, if you know what it is, then have a plan on how you actually plan to deploy it, as opposed to just thinking that you can play reactively and get where you need to go based on what your opponent does. That's too risky, in my opinion. If you're looking to make a preparation, no plan has ever survived contact with the enemy, as the saying goes. But by all means, have the plan, so that at least you can try to set the pace of the match from the get-go. Beyond that, obviously, have a great time. If we're not having a great time, then what the heck are we doing this for? There's no reason to devote this much of our lives into something that makes us anything less than satisfied. So, this is a fun game. We have presumably started playing for fun, so try to have fun.
Yep. Mike?
Tom's Charts are the greatest. That's how you win games.
Ugh, it's hard to listen to.
Wow.
Yeah, pay attention to the data. It does not lie. It's a really good way to prepare. The end.
All right. Jay?
Listen to the data, and on the topic of data, play robots.
Robots are the greatest.
Because Star Trek? No?
Stop it, Jay. I'll slap you.
I try to.
All right. Next up. Chris Stockhouse snuck another one in there.
Oh, you son of a...
His second question, is Proteus and Morlock an issue? Do you expect a watch list in the future? So, recently on MajesticCCG.com, David Gosselman, I believe, I might be butchering that name, he posted a team that involved the Quinjet, and the team, Quinjet's the center of the team. There's a couple Ultron drones, there's some ID cards, of course, because there's a Windjet, and also included in the team was a Morlock possessed by Proteus. The ultimate plan with that, have the Morlock die courtesy of Proteus. He only spends 10 points, whatever your opponent picks, whatever they want. Then Proteus is on the board. And then Proteus says, I'm jumping in the Quinjet, time to pulse wave. So it's with my 4 damage or time to prob, whatever you decide is the issue. It's a really neat little trick that can really add some oomph to your team. Do I think it's gonna be watch listed? Nah. I don't think it will. It's just gonna become a strategy to be aware of and be ready to play up against. It's part of that stack of Windjet teams from the chart. So I don't think it'll be watch listed per se, but it'll be on that stack of things to deal with. Tom?
I think it's a bit hasty to talk watch list yet. Let's let it dominate Worlds, and then we'll see what happens. But as it is, it's potent. Sure, absolutely. It's a potent and a cool idea. Very neat idea. I like that a lot. But I'm not. I must admit that I also agree that until we see it really dominate, I don't want to be preemptively witch hunting it.
No. Mike?
I agree. I mean, I don't think it's so powerful that it really needs to be watch listed quite so soon. I haven't seen it really in action for myself, but thinking about it, it's good, but there's other good stuff.
All right. Okay.
I have 2 major comments as the resident Windjet player, apparently. Number 1, outside of one specific strategy that I can think of that I'm not going to divulge because it's stupid, the ruling on the first turn immunity thing with the Proteus not ignoring first turn immunity means that it is not possible, outside of one very specific thing, to even get that off on turn 1. Therefore, you can't even set it up until turn 2. And that puts you at a slight disadvantage out of the gate, but basically not being able to do anything turn 1 while your opponent gets to start to set up or move or whatever. So, yeah, it's a good strategy, but it's not the most broken thing in the world. And I don't think the watch list is there for stuff that's fundamentally broken and ruins the game, not just stuff that's really powerful. It's for stuff that actually ruins the fun of the game spirit and whatnot. It's not going to be watch listed ever. And the second comment is that I love that I don't think the Windjet has been referred to by the actual name this whole episode. So there is no Quinjet. There is only the jet that wins, the Windjet.
Yeah. I reverted towards the end of the episode to remembering that, we call it the Windjet. Phrase coined by Aaron Cantu.
I'm going to get that shirt made. I'm going to win a major shirt with it, and I will get the Windjet shirt made, and I will wear it in public and give you that.
Good idea. All right, next up, Charles L. Franklin. Hope you all had a good weekend. I had a better weekend than my dice.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron Cantu. How much has your messages from people asking for help with teams gone up in the last 2 weeks as we ramped up to ROC States and U.S. Nationals/Worlds? I know we've been getting, I've been getting a lot lately. Those of you unfamiliar, Aaron Cantu is one of the hosts of 2 Clicks from KO's, a wonderful podcast to listen to.
Absolutely, check that out.
A lot of great people. It's actually, if you check in the comment or the description below, we do put a link to it still in our description. How do you guys feel about this practice? How much of it is from strangers, and how much of it do you answer? Keep up the good work. Well, I don't know if you've been paying attention, Aaron, but a little while ago, we put a moratorium on questions from non-patrons. So the only people who we have been answering questions from have been paying us to do so through our Patreon page at patreon.com/madewithclicks. The moratorium will be lifted in July, but it's also probably why you are getting more of those questions, Aaron, so you're welcome. And Aaron does also want us to make a chart for it, Tom.
Okay. Charts for everything. I'm down with it.
For everything.
I do love charts.
So, Tom, actually, what you want to do is the chart's going to have a bar from before we put the moratorium and after we put the moratorium, but put it next to 2 Clicks from KO's questions.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Aaron. We have actually another question that got snuck in on the link, the direct link.
That was an anti-pass question, though.
Which is, what's that?
I was going to answer that last question that we just had from good old Aaron.
All right,
Wow.
cool. What do you got, Jay?
I get. Well, I find that there are certain fans that I talk to more regularly, and then I am okay answering those questions. But I don't think I've ever just gotten a straight-up question from somebody I've never talked to before, thankfully. But as much as I might get all those kind of messages or not get those kind of messages, there is nothing like the number of messages that we get from Aaron distracting us and giving us various information during our show.
I like it. Keep it up.
Yep. All right. So next up, Robert Owens, one of our newest patrons, and I will look forward to welcoming you into the patron family, Mr. Robert Owens. With Jason calling this a faster meta, do you think it's time for the KC Flash? I think I used the wrong word because I went with faster as a kind of a throwback for my days in Magic. I actually meant aggressive and high action meta is kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah, rather than posturing meta.
Yeah. But on that note, do you guys agree or disagree as I disappear to go let Amber in as she has forgotten her keys?
Well, I mean, as far as do I think it's time for some more KC Flash? I got to admit, I'm not so sure it is. I love the KC Flash very much, but I think that I keep coming back to this comment that Jay made earlier, that we're moving into a meta of near constant attacks, where it's far less important that you get that one really significant attack, and it is far more important that you get as many attacks as possible. KC Flash is an outstanding piece, there's no doubt, and it can make a lot of attacks, but at 2/3 of your team, that is harder to protect now than it was when there were better entity options and so forth. And with there's no way that he can't outrun a colossal retaliation, no matter how fast he goes. And so it doesn't take too many of those to knock him down, and he doesn't take too many attacks to corner him and carve him through. So as much as he's a good piece, he doesn't have quite the output necessary to get one-hit KOs. And he doesn't quite have the defenses to survive that many retaliations and just sheer overwhelming swarmitude. So I like him, but I don't think it's the best climate for him. That would be my comment.
I tend to agree with Tom, as what I do most of the time. I'm
usually right.
You're always right. All right. Anyway. I do tend to agree with Tom most of the time, but I think that we're seeing, even though we have seen a fair number of tentpoles in our provincial state that just happened. I do think that the meta is going much more towards the swarm heavy, as we were discussing earlier, and you are essentially punished for having one big target. The retaliation is a very good example of how, but there are lots and lots and lots of ways for that to happen. It's a lot harder to give KC Flash range, for instance, to get around some form of plasticity, because there still is a fair amount of plasticity out there. In fact, one of the sins gives you plasticity lust, I believe it's called. And so, unless you're playing him on a no resource with a Hulkbuster part to give him that minimum, what is it, min 5, min 6 or something like that, with the energy explosion, I think it's one of the legs that gives him that. I can't remember exactly.
It's energy explosion, and it's one of the arms.
Right. Okay. So it is the other arm anyway. The other one gives you exploit. Not really the point right now. There's no way to give him any range outside of that, and so he becomes less viable because resources are still a thing. They really are.
Jay?
I like KC Flash a fair amount, and he has his room in the meta, but I also like KC Shazam for very similar reasons. So
KC Shazam has range.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really, really, really like his defense combo. Easy, lets you keep plus invincible. So,
oh yeah, he's better protected. He costs less. He has the KC team ability. Well, I guess they both do, but he's better defended. He's almost as fast. He's got range.
And super strength.
He ends out with Pulse Wave.
Yeah, KC Flash does have his place, but I don't know, with Nick Fury being a thing, I don't know. I don't like playing temples right now. So
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that about does it for that. Does do it. Sorry for.
Do it.
So I want to thank our fans for letting us the questions. It's late, Mike. Come on, give me a break.
It is. Ooh, it's
We're all a little
sleepy.
tired.
It's
I'm
sleepy
totally
time.
tired.
You guys need free show games. On that note, though, as always, I want to thank HC Rums for their support. HCRums.com, your source for all the stuff Heroclix. Conversations. If you're looking to trade, looking to sell, looking to do kind of stuff, all kinds of stuff like that on there, it's there. If you're looking to build your team and just don't want to pull up the cards, use the unit section. Looking to track your collection, also use the unit section. It's a great source of information as far as everything that's going there. And while you're there, click on the shop button, buy some cool stuff, and on your way out, put in the coupon code MARRIED for 10% off of your purchase. As well, we're also brought to you part by MajesticCCG.com. Check out the Apex Insiders portion of the site. $3 a month gets you premium access to premium articles from some of the names, the big names in the game of Heroclix. Expect a whole bunch of new articles coming up soon with Worlds just around the corner. There's a lot of really good quality articles on the way from that site. I'm also working on one, though not specifically on Worlds, as this is going to be my first trip to Worlds myself. Mine is going to be more on, getting ready for the event in general, and I'm kind of excited to write that one out pretty soon. And also, if you want to support us directly, check us out at patreon.com/marriedwithclicks. The patron support so far is actually getting us a camera so my phone can take a break from all of this filming. So, and it's actually just going to be doing documentary footage from now on, or like background footage where we're taking behind-the-scenes photos. We do have a camera that we're going to order very shortly. So I want to thank our patrons for making that possible. And this is really the reason we set up the patron program, was to attempt to make the videos better for you guys, as well as to give you guys little treats. If you check out in the $10 plus mark, we do get you guys those action tokens on a regular basis. But without further ado, guys, for all of you who had a ton of fun at the Rocks, for all of you planning on going to Worlds, getting ready for all the major tournaments, just remember that practice
makes
your
team.
Wait for it. Wait for it. Better.
You're a wiener.
What a narcissist.
Oh,
Have a good night, everybody.
night, everybody.